Hey YouTubers, thought I'd do a little bit of a video in process. I put off cleaning up these pistons and I sure regret it at this point. It's been a lot more of a chore than I expected it to be on such a low mileage overhaul. But, you know, it is what it is. So I wanted to do a little bit of a video on the process of how you clean off pistons, clean out piston ring grooves, and maybe how to do it without buying the expensive ring groove cleaning tool. So anyway, I thought I'd do a little video of how I've been working on these things. I got these things, they've been soaking in a little bit of diesel fuel. So I'm just trying to make sure I keep the piston pins oiled up, because they'll get sticky on you if you're not careful. Especially if you leave. Now I'm saying it's a good idea to clean pistons in carb dip, but on this particular application I didn't use the carb dip to help melt off some of this carbon, because I honestly didn't think there was that much on them. But now that I'm into the process of trying to clean them, I'm thinking I probably should have soaked them in the carb dip, but I'm already this far into it, so I'll just finish doing it the old-fashioned way and go from there. So basically what these are the factory Hyper dish top 1995 Chevy 350. I think it's engine code K, with the powdered metal connecting rods, which is ironic because I had received some information regarding these particular pistons and rods, and they're like, "Are you sure that came out of a Suburban?" I said, "Well, when you run the code on the block, on the head deck on the front of the block, it comes back to a 95 Chevrolet Suburban." And he's like, "Well, that's really weird," because he didn't think that they put this assembly in the trucks. I said, "Well, maybe it's been rebuilt before in its lifetime. I don't know the history on it." I actually received it in a trade from a friend who had bought it to rebuild and never did. So I didn't really know anything other than what I was told when I got it in the trade. And I am not saying this is gospel, but from what he was telling me, this light is what he's calling it, the lightweight factory rotating assembly. I don't know. I've never been in, I don't rebuild a lot of those 95 engines. A lot of the engines I've rebuilt are older than that. So I don't have a point of reference from my own experience. I'm just passing on what he thought was an odd combination of what I was told is like an LT1 style rotating assembly in a truck engine. Just was weird. And I said, "Well, who knows, maybe that Suburban had a heavy duty application engine. I have no clue." I said I was just happy when I pulled the pan off of it and saw it had those powdered metal rods in it, because I know those are really strong connecting rods, and I just went with it. So anyway, quit wasting time, because I got to take these piston rings off of here. Hopefully you guys can see. Yeah, you can see it. These crazy rings, I don't know why they didn't seat nearly as well as I would think they should have. But you know, nothing ever goes like you want all the time. So snap that ring because it makes it come off faster. Let me see if I can get this thing to participate here. Somehow I managed to get that. See if I can get that thing out of that groove there. Somehow my glove grabbed the oil control ring when I was. Those things are kind of a pain in the neck. There we go. Once you get it started, it'll pop right off. But I got a nice little pile of rings going on the floor down here. But I wanted to go through the process here of yanking these rings off of here. Now what I've been doing, once I get the rings pulled off, this one isn't near as bad as some of the other ones I was working on, but you can see the top has quite a bit of carbon and burnt motor oil or something built up on it. This one actually not near as bad as the one that's coming up. But I will take it, now that I yank the rings off, I tap it, make sure my rod bolts are run down finger tight. I'm trying to keep my rod bearings tightly secured, and I'm soaking it. What I've done is after I pull those rings off, I'll do the dirty one next. After I pull the rings off, basically what I'm doing is putting it in diesel fuel above the pin to soften up that stupid carbon and whatnot that's inside these grooves and on the head of the piston. And the reason being, remember, I have a second ring, I'm not reusing them, so I'm snapping them to speed up the removal process. But that way I don't accidentally scratch. Because a lot of times when you're trying to take off those second rings, you're fighting with it, and boom, you end up scratching it. And I don't know, I didn't feel like doing that, so I just snapped it. But what I was talking about is these pistons. Ow, should I get this thing going? There we go. When you go to clean them, a lot of times down inside the grooves, you're going to have a built up like burnt motor oil, which always has some carbon and junk like that in it. But when you go to clean up that ring groove down in there, and here's the interesting thing, as crappy as that cylinder was running, because I mean this is scaly, I don't know if you can hear that or not, that is a scaly buildup on that piston, but the ring grooves are in fairly good shape. But I will soak them in the diesel fuel, because a lot of times when you're trying to scrape your ring grooves, you, man, if they're dry, it'll just dang near it'll wear you out trying to get those things cleaned out. And of course it makes a big mess and blah, blah, blah. But just get, if you don't own, because it's always going to be easier if you buy the right tool. But if you don't have the money and don't want to spend the extra expense of buying a ring groove cleaning tool, then you can take a ring, one of your top two rings, it doesn't matter which, snap it. What I do is take and snap that ring, and then this ring is super sharp. The edges on a piston ring, especially a used one, will cut you in a heartbeat, and I mean cut you like a razor blade. So what I do is I take a piece of broken ring, slide a piece of vacuum hose, I'm trying to see what size this is, but it's so greasy I can't read it, 3/16 I think, vacuum hose over the end of it, so I've got a good safe area to grab. And I'll show you that thing in action here in just a second. I'll do a little scraping on this thing before gosh, you think I'd be smart enough to find the end of this. There it is. Yank it all off in one swift thing there. But I'm just going to show you without even soaking this piston. Take your little tool that you make with a broken ring, here's another one. I just save a couple of them. Plus I got a whole pile I can always make a new tool. But literally, just take this tool and get it in your groove and use that edge to clean out those grooves as best you can, because you don't want any buildup down inside these ring grooves. Now see, you can only do about a third at a time. So I'm going to roll that piston. Keep your tool wiped off, because it's going to collect a bunch of gunk. Well, depending on how dirty your engine is. See, well, y'all can't see that, but it came right off. Keep cleaning your tool. And you know what I mean, your cleaning edge, the edge that you're cleaning, you can only do so much per swipe. So get it started about at the right angle. Don't dig into your aluminum, but basically you just work it through that groove and get all that black carbon crap out of this piston. These things are cleaning up really good. You can see all that. At least I hope you can. What I'll do is I'll just roll it over. Do a quick little swipe on these things. These are actually coming really clean. I've had pistons, actually maybe these pistons, when I originally broke it down from the factory, I think it had like 100,000 miles on it or whatever. It was a huge nightmare. Huge nightmare trying to get these stupid ring lands clean. Woo. Okay, I've just got that. Just got those 3 rods setting in diesel fuel. Now what I'm going to do, and I apologize for everybody who's watching, I do not have any rubber gloves. I ran out. I don't know how. Usually I keep those things, at least a new box at all times. So basically what I'll do now is I'll go back to that first piston that we yanked the rings off of. Set it on our little work spot here. And then we don't need our ring tool right now. What I use is just Scotch-Brite. Just go around this piston top. Try to get all this stupid carbon and burnt oil off. Now what I was going to say a while ago, I think I got lost, is when you're working these pistons and you're working those grooves, because you know your pistons may be a lot more built up with grime than these, don't be afraid to work it a little bit, throw it back in the diesel fuel. You can use diesel fuel, whatever kind of high detergent you want. That's just what I have available and what I'm using. But don't be afraid to just throw it back in your high detergent or your solvent. Grab a new one. Grab a different one. Keep working it. Now, I will say this. On one of those pistons, I think it was the very first one I did, I was trying to clean the carbon off the head of the piston. Ran into a bunch of, I don't know if it was detonation or what, but a bunch of really rough edges. If you're rubbing this piston around where your ring seats and you feel any roughness, burrs, scratches, anything like that, take a file, just take a fine file and lightly knock those down until where they're not going to cause interference or scratches on your cylinders. Because you'll see detonation can do various damages to pistons, from looks like little specks, almost like specks of metal that's kind of embedded in the head of your piston. You can actually see vertical, looks like vertical scratch lines from the top of your piston to your first ring land. It'll look like someone has taken, just scratched a bunch of little lines from the top of your piston down to your first ring land. That's detonation. A lot of people don't understand that. When they see that, they're like, oh, what happened to this piston? Did somebody drag this thing on the ground? It looks like somebody scratched it on concrete. That's detonation. Basically, there was a fire that went between the top of that piston all the way down to your top of your first ring. It was hot enough, it just zip, put a line in it. Zip, zip, zip. Every time it was detonating, it literally will look like someone went around with a, almost like a flame cutter or something, and just put little bitty divots around that little area above your top ring land. So anyway, check out your pistons, take your time, clean out your ring lands, and make sure everything's perfectly clean, so there's no interference for those new piston rings to seal. So thank you guys for watching. I'll make another video.